Have you ever felt like your past mistakes were pulling you down? Like you were drowning in regret with no way to fix what you've done? Maybe you've made choices you wish you could undo, and now no matter how hard you try, it feels like you're sinking deeper and deeper. Today, I want to share a powerful story of two people, James and Andrew, who found themselves drowning in their own mistakes. One was a man who lost everything because of his pride, and the other was a man who let guilt consume him. But through God's grace, they discovered that no mistake is too big for God to redeem. Let's dive into their story. James had always been the guy who had everything figured out, or at least that's what he told himself. He built his life on confidence, success, and the belief that he could handle anything on his own. He had a thriving business, a beautiful family, and the respect of everyone around him. But James had one fatal flaw: his pride. He always wanted to be in control. He repeatedly ignored warning signs, thinking he was invincible. And then one decision changed everything. James made a reckless business investment, one he was warned about, one that seemed too good to be true. But he ignored everyone and went all in. Within months, everything collapsed. His company went bankrupt and his debts piled up. Investors turned against him. His reputation was destroyed. And worst of all, his pride had blinded him so much that he even pushed his family away. His wife, tired of being ignored and mistreated, took their children and left. James sat in his empty house, drowning in his mistakes. He had no one to blame but himself. The weight of failure pressed down on him, and for the first time in his life, he had to face the truth. He wasn't as strong as he thought he was. He had built his life on arrogance, and now everything had crumbled. On the other side of town, another man was also drowning, but in a different way. Andrew had always been a good man, or at least he tried to be. He worked hard, helped his friends, and was always there when people needed him. But one bad decision ruined everything. One night, Andrew was out with some friends. They had a few drinks. Nothing crazy, but enough to blur his judgment. Against his better instincts, he got into his car and drove home. The next morning, he woke up to the worst news of his life. There had been an accident. A man, someone's father, husband, and son, had died because of his reckless decision. Andrew had no memory of the crash, but that didn't change the truth. He was responsible. Over the next few months, the guilt consumed him. He withdrew from everyone. He couldn't sleep. He couldn't eat. Every time he looked in the mirror, all he saw was a murderer. He went to church, but he couldn't bring himself to pray. How could God ever forgive him? James and Andrew were both drowning, one in pride, the other in guilt. But their stories didn't end there. One day, James found himself walking aimlessly, lost in thought, when he passed by an old church. Something pulled him inside. As he sat in the back row, the pastor was speaking about Peter, how he had denied Jesus 3 times but was still forgiven and restored. James felt something break inside him. He had denied the truth for so long, thinking he didn't need help. But in that moment, he realized how desperately he needed God. That night, for the first time in years, James prayed. He admitted his mistakes, his pride, and his failures, and in the silence, he felt something he hadn't felt in a long time: peace. Andrew, on the other hand, was ready to give up. The guilt was too much. But one day, an old friend found him and refused to leave him alone. "You need to stop running," his friend said. "You need to believe that God's grace is bigger than your sin." Through his tears, Andrew admitted his fear. "I don't deserve forgiveness." His friend smiled sadly. "None of us do, but that's the point of grace." Andrew broke down, and in that moment he finally let God in. It took time, but James and Andrew slowly rebuilt their lives. James learned humility. He started from nothing but built his life on faith this time, rather than pride. Andrew, though still carrying the consequences of his actions, found a way to use his story to help others. He spoke at churches and schools, warning people about the dangers of reckless decisions, but also sharing how God's mercy had saved him from drowning. They both learned a powerful lesson. Mistakes don't have to define you. No matter how far you've fallen, God's hand is always reaching out, waiting for you to grab hold. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, and share this video. And don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories that inspire and encourage. See you in the next video.